Atlanta is a critically acclaimed television series created by Donald Glover that blends elements of comedy, drama, surrealism, and social commentary. Atlanta explores themes such as race, class, identity, fame, and the complexities of Black life in America. In its third season, Atlanta uses surrealism, satirical, and fragmented storytelling to challenge traditional ideas of what it means to be Black, highlighting how race, identity, and privilege are not fixed traits, but socially constructed forces that shape how Black individuals navigate the world around them. Season 3 of Atlanta opens at Lake Lanier. It's a real place with a violent racial history. Two men are fishing where one talks about the town's past, showing how Black trauma can be hid beneath peaceful surface. Then we meet Licorice, a playful Black boy based on Devontae Hurt. After getting in trouble at school and home, his grandfather slapped him 3 times, and the teacher sees it as abuse and puts him in foster care with 2 white women. At first, they seem kind, but soon they
In
rename
episode
him
2,
Larry
Ern, Alfred,
and make
Darius,
him
and
sleep
Van
in
navigate
toilet room,
Amsterdam's
and use him to
controversial
show their
Zwarte
charity by
Piet
making
tradition,
him
where
wear a big
participants
hack
blacken their
sign at the
faces,
farmer's market.
a symbol rooted in
Unlike the real story,
colonialism and
Atlanta
racial
gave
insensitivity.
Licorice a different ending.
The story
He
exposes
runs
how Black
away
people are
and
perceived
escapes.
in a white-dominated
But in
space.
real life,
Ern
Devontae
handles
died.
tour
The white Black green
negotiations
couple
with
killed
caution,
themselves,
aware
and
of
the
the
6
need
children they adopt.
to appear calm
Through
and
satire,
respectable to
the
be taken
episodes show how
seriously,
Black
a
families
reflection
are
of the
judged more
pressures of
harshly,
respectability
especially
politics.
under respectability
Alfred's
politics.
wrongful
It also
arrest reveals
reveals the white
society's conditional
surrealism.
respect for
The
Black
white couple in
individuals, valuing
Atlanta
them
seem
only when they
helpful,
bring
but
fame
they
or
are trying to
benefit, not
control
simply for their
others or feel
humanity.
good about themselves. Alfred
Darius
has
witnesses
his
children,
racial
including
bias.
white kids. In episode 2, Ern, Alfred, Darius, and Van navigate Amsterdam's controversial Zwarte Piet tradition, where participants blacken their faces, a symbol rooted in colonialism and racial insensitivity. The story exposes how Black people are perceived in a white-dominated space. Ern handles tour negotiations with caution, aware of the need to appear calm and respectable to be taken seriously, a reflection of the pressures of respectability politics. Alfred's wrongful arrest reveals society's conditional respect for Black individuals, valuing them only when they bring fame or benefit, not simply for their humanity. Darius witnesses children, including white kids, painting their faces Black, oblivious to the racist implications, showing how racism is normalized and passed down as a tradition. The episode uses satire to highlight how racism persists under the guise of cultural celebration, exposing enduring racial dynamics despite changing settings.
The show uses magical realism a lot to put across very real issues. It uses a lot of characters with innate race that based on people you would come across in real life. Episode 3, Old Man in the Tree is a great example of this. The crew visits a millionaire's house and meets a bunch of people who put them in very weird situations. Darius meets a lady who assumes he's hitting on her, and once she realizes that she's wrong, she comments on how Black guys always hit on her. Darius doesn't think much of it and continues talking to her. However, a bystander sees this and tells an exaggerated version of the story to everyone else present there, and they all sit and discuss how messed up the comment was. Even though Darius tries to tell them that that is not what happened, but they do not listen to him, showing that even though it was his experience, it was not centered around him. Atlanta also brings to light many important topics under the guise of satire. For example, the entire episode 4, The Big Payback, follows the story of a man named Marshall Johnson, who's living in a world where Black people begin asking for reparations directly from the families of people who enslaved their family members. The episode created a massive conflict between fans, as some believed that this was to show the consequences of reparations, while others thought it was supposed to show how the world would be if there was a shift in racial dynamics. However, the show attempted to portray how white people perceive the world around them. The best example of this is the character Shaniqua Johnson, who's the lady asking Marshall for reparations. She is presented as a sapphire, and she is shown as angry and someone who is just out there to get Marshall. The episode ends with Marshall finally making peace with paying the reparations and working at a restaurant. The entire episode employs surrealism and absurdity to convey its message.
In episode 6, a luxury London fashion brand faced the backlash for releasing jerseys with the world's Century Park 5, sparking accusations of racial insensitivity. To manage the crisis, they invited Alfred, a person of color, to join their diversity advisor committee. Alfred saw this as a chance to advocate for his community proposing reinvestment in their hoods, urging brands to genuinely invest in black neighbors. Initially confident he could shape the conversation, calling it a collaboration, Alfred soon realized he was being used as a token, a colored face, to mask the brand's hypocrisy. His proposal was dismissed as a mere beautification, exposing the shallow nature of the company's so-called diversity efforts. Meanwhile, Doris met Sharon, a white woman obsessed with Nigerian culture. Her fascination felt less like a genuine respect and more like cultural appropriation. Sharon eventually led the brand's team to buy out Nigerian food vendors, repackaging their culture for profit and erasing its true meaning, highlighting how white capital sanitizes and commodifies black identity. In a brief but telling moment, Van reunites with Aaron and faces a racist accusation tied to Aaron's black identity, underscoring ongoing or everyday racism and the complexity of their relationship.
In the episode Rich Wigga Poor Wigga, the topic of racial identity is questioned. The episode centers on Aaron, a biracial high school student who has largely navigated life by aligning with whiteness. However, when a wealthy black manufacturer offers college scholarships exclusively to black students, Aaron finds himself forced to confront the limitations of racial ambiguity and finds himself excluded from a form of black empowerment, raising questions about who is entitled to claim blackness and under what criteria. This episode examines how blackness is not a monolith. It highlights the tension between cultural identity and perceived authenticity, exposing how societal systems continue to enforce racial and social hierarchies even in spaces intended to support marginalized communities. Furthermore, Aaron's performative attempts to align with black culture underscored the complexities of cultural appropriation and strategic identity construction. His actions are less about embracing cultural heritage and more about accessing institutional benefits, prompting viewers to question the ethical boundaries between identity and opportunism. By the conclusion, Aaron's character undergoes a symbolic and literal transformation. His hardened demeanor and adoption of a more aggressive persona suggested a profound shift, one influenced more by external perceptions and societal rejection than by authentic self-discovery.